Welcome to the show, Fuck Loneliness. I'm your host, Sharon Pieczenik. And in each episode, I invite a guest on and we discuss the nature of loneliness. Let's hop right into it. Hi, Ali. How you doing? This is Ali Binazir. He is a happiness engineer, an author, speaker, behavioral change specialist, and you have two fabulous websites, The Happiness Engineering and Tao of Dating. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to hop into this notion of happiness engineering in regards to loneliness. Where is there overlap?
Well. So let me give you the framework for happiness engineering and how loneliness figures prominently in the middle of it.
Great.
So the whole notion of happiness engineering came from me being around a lot of very accomplished and nominally successful people who weren't necessarily happy. I realized that in these high achieving communities, people orient themselves towards status, money, and power. And some of them don't get it and they're not happy because they haven't gotten it. But then some people do get it, and then when they get it, they're still not happy. So I'm like, maybe that is not the thing. And initially I thought, wow, this must be a glitch in the matrix. I mean, what is wrong with these people? They have a roof over their head, they have cars, they have friends, they have unlimited access to food. We used to have to hunt for this stuff, and they're still not happy.
Right.
And I realized actually it's not a glitch in the matrix. It is the way we are designed. Your brain is not designed for happiness. Your brain is designed for survival. And so status, money, and power, those are the proxies for survival. And so in this hyper abundant world that we now live in, you have to actually engineer your happiness and go after it if you want it. It's not going to come naturally. And if you don't attend to it, it will definitely not happen. So I came up with these 5 areas of your life to really start paying attention to and to design your happiness into your life as opposed to leaving it to chance. And those 5 areas are: number 1, head and shoulders above everything else, is robust relationships. So
Boom.
strength
Yes.
and quality of your relationships is the biggest determinant of your long-term overall health, happiness, well-being, everything. And I'll give you the other 4 for completeness. So number 2 is meaningful work. So 81% of North Americans say their work is not all that meaningful, and that's a tough thing. 10 hours, 5 days a week, that's what you have to do. Number 3 is sound sleep.
Mm.
And a lot of us behave as if sleep is this infinite bounty account that we can withdraw from, and that's not the way it works. So got to take care of that. And number 4 is mental fitness. So the whole suite of practices around meditation, mindfulness. And I always say, hey, if you want to be physically fit, what do? You exercise. If you want to be mentally fit, what do? You meditate. And number 5 is physical fitness, and that's diet and exercise, and basically eating good food that is whole and natural, and also making sure you get some exercise, because there ain't nothing in the universe that elevates your mood more quickly and more effectively than moving around, than
So true.
exercise. So, and all these feed back into the whole social aspect too. I mean, they're all interrelated, right? If you had a crappy night of sleep, you're going to be snippy with all your friends and family and drive them away, right? If you had a bad day at work, how's that going to affect the way you show up at home? So all these things are and who's never been hangry? If you're hangry, you're going to snap at people. So all these things interact with one another. And when it comes to that whole relationship thing, what we've done is we have in Western achievement-oriented cultures, we've traded privacy and autonomy for community. And
Mm.
now I think, according to statistics, the number 1 type of household in the US is a single person household. So one person living by himself or herself. So this is not the way things used to be. We used to be in these tribes of, around 150 people. Everybody knew everybody else.
Yeah.
And yes, they were up in your stuff as well, which is not as fun, but that community, that whole sense of being around other people and being able to interact casually and talk and just hang out. And so much of that seems to
Yeah.
be missing from our lives in a affluent Western society, especially in these times with a lot of quarantining and lockdown and lack of public venues and interaction like that.
Yeah. I mean, so I was listening to one of your TED Talks, and when you were talking about intimate relationships and how
Mm,
it's the overall predictor of health and happiness.
yeah.
And the notion that you were just discussing in terms of how we live this solitary life,
Yeah.
I mean, that is my life to a T. I
Hmm.
am a person who would travel a lot and chase adventure for work. And when I was
Hmm.
overseas in Africa or Central America, I would have these lovely glimpses into village structures where I felt happiest, actually. And then
Yeah.
I would come back to the States and be very isolated and very alone. And it never jived. It never felt right. I kept feeling like the way we were doing it in the States did not work.
Yeah. So for the past 3 years, I've been traveling around the world and living in different cities as part of my happiness engineering project
Mm,
to figure out, hey, how are other people living? I was in San Francisco for 5 years, and after a while, I'm like, there's a lot of crime here, there's a lot of homelessness, and it stopped being fun. And also, it got more expensive as it got less fun. So I'm like, okay, how do other people in the world live? Because you're in some spot and you think, oh, this is the center of the known universe. This is the best thing ever. But really, is it? Let's go find out. So went to places like Lisbon, Portugal, and Barcelona, Spain, and Helsinki, Finland, and Buenos Aires, and a bunch of other cities. And turns out things are different. People
mm,
have a lot of community. So in a
wow,
place like Lisbon, people go to a restaurant or a cafe and they just hang out for hours. Now you could
wow,
say, oh, well, our GDP is, 60 million times as much as Portugal. But if you have all the GDP in the world, but you're miserable, hey, who's winning, right?
right,
Is
totally.
that really success, right?
Yeah,
And these people are chilling out. They're having fresh fish coming at their table for like less than $10 a pop. And housing is accessible and it's all beautiful. I mean, Lisbon's amazing. Anywhere you live in Lisbon, you're doing great.
mm,
Um, Buenos Aires, same thing. People are hanging out. Like in Buenos Aires, you can get ice cream at 2 a.m. and people are
wow,
hanging out. It's great. And,
yeah,
and in a place like Los Angeles or San Francisco, anywhere in California, places shut down. Like, you can't get dinner at 9. 9 people are already shutting down. So, I mean, I'm a night owl, so I'm particularly inclined toward these nocturnal excursions. But the point is, there was life in the streets. People were milling around. They're
right,
enjoying themselves, and they're taking these long dinners, which we consider a great luxury. And in Italy and France, people sit down and they have these meals, and the meals are considered sacred, kind of, right? You're sitting around, and
yeah,
it's all about talking and sharing a meal, and as opposed to here, where I'm as guilty as this as anybody. We basically think of food as fuel and
right,
inhale it as quickly as possible so we can do that other more important thing.
yeah.
So there's definitely demographic differences here. And I've done
And
my own little personal experiments. And,
yeah,
for example, people here, it's just hard to schedule stuff with busy people. And, it's like, oh, I can see you in 3 weeks. I'm like, 3 weeks, really? Like
yeah,
next fiscal quarter? So spontaneity, right? And when you have these cities that are very big and spread out, everybody's in cars, you don't get that spontaneous bump in. So how
yeah,
can we recreate these things in our lives such that we do have a sense of community, such
yeah.
that we do have friends that are close to us and we have regular contact with, and we nurture and develop those friendships both in breadth and depth?
Yeah, I mean, I had lived in LA for a couple years and I found it extraordinarily difficult to make friendships because someone would live 45 minutes to an hour across town, and just to see them as frequently as possible to build a
Mm,
friendship was logistically basically impossible. I'm
right.
a small town kind of person because I
Mhm.
like to have relationships close by and
Yeah. So
uh,
so I like to present the problem, the challenge, but instead of just going on some litany of woe, I like to provide people with solutions and how they can
yeah,
build around that. So,
yeah.
what do we want to talk about dating, friendship, building community? What do you think would be most useful
Well,
to your
I'd love
audience?
to hear about those 2 points a little bit that you had broken down intimate relationships. You had
Mm.
talked about prioritizing work over no,
Ah,
flip
yes.
that, prioritizing relationships over work,
Yes.
and, the what's your life purpose? Person who allows you to flourish and bringing them into your life.
Right. Okay. So those are great, great topics. So, one trend that I've noticed comparing, say, American society with other places in the world is that Americans and generally achievement-oriented people, they tend to prioritize work over their relationships. So the relationships are there to enable and support the work, and also the relationships can just fall by the wayside and disappear, right? And for example, I met a very appealing young lady recently, and she was a lot of what I was looking for in so many ways. And she was also the CEO of this startup, which meant that she had no time. So
Right.
here's a person, and I can see her loneliness. I
Yep.
can see the fact that she isolates herself and she works way too hard, taking calls on a Sunday night, right?
Right.
At the same time, there was no point of access. There was no space in her life for somebody like me, or any kind of partnership. So you
Yeah.
must create the space, right? Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And it's so important to realize that it is your work that supports your relationships and not the other way around. I mean, if you're on some rocket ship to fame, fortune, and changing the world, and your name is Elon, hey, good luck to you. Have wobbly relationships. You've got some kind of mission. But
Right.
for the most of us, even that mission isn't all that important compared to the substance of our relationships.
Yeah.
And we forget that. And the thing that actually nourishes us and makes us function is are those relationships. So how can we make sure that this gets prioritized? And a couple of suggestions I have. So first, and some of these come from books by other people. I really like the book Deep Work by Cal Newport.
Okay.
And it's so good about just prioritizing what really matters in your work. So deep work as opposed to shallow work. And then setting up your life and your time such that you attend to the deep work, and then you're free, right? So a big, very important practice, which I see people like doctors and venture capitalists and entrepreneurs violate all the time, is you want to have working hours. You want to have your time delimited during which you work, okay? Otherwise, you have continuous partial attention in the back of your head to work, and you're never fully present with your friends. And I will tell you, this has led to the dissolution of several of my own very long-term friendships. So what you want to do is you want to say, all right, I'm an important guy, I'm the point man or the point woman, there's stuff happening all the time, and I'm going to train everybody and all my subordinates and all my colleagues to understand that I will not take calls after 6 p.m. That's it,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And no calls on Saturday and Sunday. And all the studies show that when people do this, they actually become more productive, not less productive.
Yeah.
And then you can also be fully present to your friends while you're giving your all in the first 9 to 10 or 12 hours a day, however many you want. But then when you're home, you're off, you're there, you're fully present. And one of my friends and colleagues, Tiffany Schlein, she's an amazing filmmaker and just a great thinker. And she has a whole uh, digital Sabbath where she says, hey, just the entire day, Saturday or Sunday,
Yep.
just put all your gizmos away and
Love it.
just don't allow yourself to touch them, because these gizmos, which have um, positive reinforcement mechanisms in them, basically make you addicted to them, and your brain's always somewhat paying attention to them. So people are actually dumber in a room where their cell phone is present. They don't even know it, but the tests are incontrovertible. So do you want to be dumber and less attentive when your loved ones are around, or would you like to be fully present and happy and
Yeah.
enjoying their presence as well? So yeah, that's a big part of it. So
Mhm.
prioritizing relationships over work, or at the very least, understanding that the relationship, the order of things is that here's the work supports the relationships, and this is the thing that's most important. I mean, if you become champion of the world, but your kid doesn't know your name, I mean, well, what do you
Right.
have, right?
Yeah.
So that was one of them, and the second one was, oh, the type of partnership you want. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I wrote these series of books a few years ago called The Tao of Dating, one for men and one for women. And for what it's worth, the one for women, was the highest rated book in its category for 7 years. And over the past decade that I've written this book, I've actually thought about, okay, if I were to boil it down to like one principle, what is the thing that's most important about having a partner? Why do you want partnership anyway? If I can meditate here and, achieve enlightenment and be a good person and be super productive, what is the point of having a partner? And what I came up with is this. So you can say life has no meaning intrinsically, but we can give it some kind of meaning. And the meaning I like to give it is that we're here to give our gift. Everybody has some kind of gift to give in this life. And it turns out that certain people, when they're around us, they actually catalyze the giving of that gift beyond what we could do ourselves. And we
Okay.
know who those people are. These are people who give us energy, they give us verve, they encourage us, like, yeah, you can do it, or they redirect us from mislaid plans and say, hey, no, actually, I don't think it's a good idea. Maybe you should do this. They believe in us, and these people are great. And these are the people you want to have around all the time, right?
Yeah.
And these are the people who catalyze and enhance the ability of you to give your gift to the world. On the other hand, there are people who take away that ability, who diminish that ability. So, you have somebody who's really demanding and needy. So here you are, you could be making these amazing contributions to the planet, to everybody else, and all this energy is being taken up by one person, right? Who isn't doing much with it himself or herself. So
Mm.
that's when you have that eye on the bigger mission of, hey, I'm here to give a gift to the world. This person has no right to get in the way of that, right? Because most people, when you say, hey, he or she's not good for you, they don't really listen. It doesn't really work that way. It's like, no, no, no. I'm Whitney Houston. I must sacrifice myself to the drug addictions of Bobby Brown, right? Don't be Whitney. Don't pull a Whitney, right?
Yeah.
So if it weren't for that choice that she made, Whitney Houston may have still been amongst us, making music and elevating the world. So you have to assess, hey, you're in this relationship, even if it's just kind of mediocre, not bad, but just like, hey, wait a sec, is this the best version of me? I have this friend and she's broken up 5 times with this guy and just
Mm.
announced to the world that now they're engaged. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And she's a writer, but she writes other people's books. And I'm like, you know, if this guy were the right guy for you, by now you would have written like 2 or 3 of your own books.
Hmm.
Because that's the kind of guy you want. That's the whole point of relationship, right? To catalyze a greater flourishing of you. So let that be a rubric for who you want to hang out with, who you want to establish partnership with. And also note that when you meet that person, they may not look like the package you always had in your mind, but you're going to feel something. You're going to feel like, wow, this person really brings out the best version of me. And that's your sign to stick around. And the brain is a remarkable instrument, and you will eventually find that person attractive in your own special way because the brain is good at that. So uh, stick around, let them stick around. If you are mutually enhancing one another, that is the formula for a relationship that is probably good for you and will make you happy in the long run, as opposed to
Yeah.
miserable because that person fit a certain number of check marks but doesn't have time for you. Brings you down, takes away your energy.
I love it. I love all of it. I think it resonates so amazingly. I've spent most of my life chasing a career
Hmm.
and then looked up and went, "Oh my God, I'm alone. I've moved around a lot. I'm lonely. I don't have a partner. I'm prioritizing the wrong things completely."
Mm, mm.
And so switching perspective, switching focus, switching energy now has been really important.
Now, Sharon, this is very important because other people would probably like to know. How
Mhm.
did you know? At what point did you know that your priorities were misplaced? I mean, is it a neon sign that pops up? Is it, you
Right.
fall flat on your face in the gutter? What happens? How can people know?
Yeah, I mean, on and off through the years, there were so many signs because I'd be wrestling with depression and wrestling with anxiety and wrestling with loneliness, but I wasn't making steps towards a life that would be fulfilling. I was chasing something I thought would make
Mhm.
me happy. I think you had mentioned in one of your talks, we're bad at predicting what will bring happiness and fulfillment.
That's correct.
And I was completely picking the wrong things. Um,
Yes.
and for the past few years, I've really been looking hard at what it is that truly fulfills me. And when I had 40, the 40-year-old birthday coming I really doubled down on
Mm,
looking at how I wanted my life to be, because I looked up and said, "Oh my God, this is nothing
yeah.
like what I wanted."
Yeah. And it's important to take the time to do that. And my stance is solitude is a much better choice than being with someone who brings you down.
True,
And most people just aren't comfortable with the idea of solitude. And solitude is different from loneliness. So
true.
solitude is something that you do deliberately. And all you have to do is decide, yes, this is actually what I want to do. And
Yeah,
then it's solitude, it's not loneliness. Loneliness is like, oh, me, poor me, nobody wants to be around me. And
yeah,
that's not nearly as empowering. So, and solitude can be a glorious, wonderful thing, especially in comparison to being around jerks, which some of
yeah,
us have done quite deliberately throughout our lives. So, pick solitude and go into some kind of contemplation and meditation about what your core values are. So sit
yes,
down. I have a list of those in the Dial of Dating book. You can find lists of them online, but go ahead and assess, like, what are your top 10 values, and of those 10, say, okay, if I could have only one of these 10, what would it be? Then go again through the list. If I could have one of these 9, what would it be? Do it again, and then you have them in order, and you have
yeah,
your top 3, and then you're like, oh, this is what really matters to me. And then choose to design your days and your lives to experience those values, right? So you want
exactly.
freedom, you want joy, you want growth, you want learning. How much of that are you deliberately designing into your life, as opposed to going through your days and forgetting that this stuff is important to you and just kind of going with the flow
Yeah,
and doing stuff that doesn't make you nearly as happy as, say, joy, freedom, and
yeah,
learning and community and connection. So whatever your values are, first step is to figure them out, and then by that standard, you can also figure out these people who are around you. Hey, what value do they fulfill in my life? And sometimes it's like, not a whole lot. Maybe I shouldn't hang out with this person so much.
yeah, absolutely. Because I agree with you. I'd rather walk alone than walk in the wrong company.
Absolutely. And this is where meditation becomes so important. And for years I was like, oh, I'm harping on meditation again. But you know what? It's just gotten to the point where I believe that if you are not serious about meditation, then you are not serious about your own happiness in the long run.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
meditation is all about getting to know your own mind and
Mhm.
how it works and being able to direct it where you want it to go, as opposed to having it go wee and chase the next bright shiny object or distraction. Because to me, the opposite of happiness is not unhappiness or separation. The opposite of happiness is compulsion, because compulsion takes away your life, literally. Compulsion takes away the time, which your life is made of, and funnels it into this thing that the compulsion wants, as opposed to what actually serves you and makes you happy. I mean, the extreme form is like crack or meth, and everybody's seen that, and nobody likes the way that looks.
Right.
But every mini compulsion is just a microcosm of those bigger compulsions. So recognize what they are, and and that's the first step to rooting them out and replacing them with the things that actually matter to you. I mean, I'm saying this like this is easy. It's not. It's
Right.
simple, but
Yeah.
not necessarily easy. But the first step is recognition. So, gizmos, gadgets, all these apps that require your attention, updates. I've killed all updates on my phone except for text messages. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
I have no addictive apps on my phone. There is no Facebook. There is no Twitter. There is no LinkedIn. There's nothing that scrolls. It's all like only essential stuff that really matters, and text, and no email. Email can be deadly too on your phone. So know that you are designing the architecture of your own happiness or misery. You are
Uh-huh.
we are all complicit in our self-inflicted misery. That's why it's called self-inflicted misery. So, I one of the tentative titles for the whole happiness engineering program was reducing self-inflicted misery. So, how are we doing that, and how can we reduce that?
And I feel like from listening to how you talk about happiness engineering, loneliness and that feeling of loneliness and the pain of loneliness will diminish as you keep growing the engineering of your own happiness.
Right. So let's talk about loneliness a little bit and address it directly so people can do some stuff with it. So, the first solution to loneliness is to reframe it as solitude. So, loneliness is inflicted upon you, whereas solitude is chosen by you. And as soon as your mind realizes that you're choosing something as opposed to having it forced upon you, it just eases up, right? Because you don't
Mhm.
feel like all contracted, you feel more expansive, you feel freer. So it's the difference between saying, I have to be alone
Right.
versus I get to be alone, right?
Mm. Okay.
And what a luxury, right? To be alone and well fed and well taken care of and be able to do your own thing. Because guess what? Someday you're going to have 2.3 kids and I don't know,
Right.
a company to run, and you're not going to be able to be alone. So you get to be alone now. Enjoy it, buddy.
Right.
So that's the first step. And then what do you do when that alone happens? And this is something I've been single for most of my life, so I'm quite familiar with this. But what do you do with yourself? So meditation's a very good practice, but figure out what those values are, what really matters to you, and then line them up in your life. If you are alone, if you are single, if you are sheltering in place right now, quarantining, whatever you're doing, that means you probably have time on your hands. So you can structure this time to do all the stuff you want to do. So I've been catching up on, I don't know, 2 decades of movies I haven't watched, music, writing, reading. So it's good times. It's a party. Is it hard? It's still hard. Every night, what I always say, what does an extrovert dream about during the pandemic? And parties. My brain is constantly creating parties inside my head. So
Oh.
yeah, we all have the need, and it's also a manifestation of the primacy of this need. It's like, oh, your brain actually manufactures the parties for you because it needs it so badly.
Mm.
So that's number one mechanism, is to just be cool with being alone and do it deliberately.
Yeah.
Even when you have people around you, just say, hey, I need my alone time. Designate a few hours or a day a week to do that. The second thing is, okay, how do we create community? And I always tell people, be the hub.
Yeah.
Make the thing you want to have. So this buddy of mine in town, he started this West Side Los Angeles, pandemic support group. So now there's like 120 people there, and we text each other, and stuff happens, and we go out and do things and get together for
Wow.
picnics or just exchange jokes on the thing. He created a community. So now he is the hub of that, and it makes it happen. Throw dinner parties. I used to throw dinner parties when I lived in San Francisco and Los Angeles, and you bring people together, and this is how people bond and friendships deepen. Make your own, I don't know, little meetup club, whether it's for
Yeah.
languages or cooking or something. The mechanisms for doing this have become so much easier. I mean, before you had to like walk around in the village or in your town, knock on people's doors, talk to them. And then people had phones, but then you can't get them on the phone. Now you can just go, boom, email, 100 people, boom, done. You just create your own community. Make a book club happen. Make a movie club happen. What do you like to do? This other friend of mine, he started this online cooking club. He films himself cooking and teaches people how to cook stuff. So all these things are possible. And also recognize that wherever you are, however lone or lonely you feel you are, there's somebody out there who feels exactly the same way you do for the exact same reasons. In fact, there's not just somebody, there's like millions of somebodies.
Right.
So so you are not alone in being alone, as that Police song said. Uh, Remember Message in a Bottle?
Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
so yes. Yeah, it's a good song.
Yeah.
And the idea is we're all of us are not alone being alone. So the third technique, so number one was choose to be alone. Number two is create the communities you want to be in, be the hub.
Yep.
And number three, did I just lose the thread? I think I just lost the thread. Number three, being alone, message in a bottle, it'll come back.
Those
Um,
first two are amazing and very powerful.
yeah,
I think
yes,
that just choosing to be alone, that mindset shift is a very
yes,
powerful shift.
right. And speaking of mindset shift, number three is be the one who cheers other people up. So the fastest way to pull yourself out of this feeling of loneliness is to reach out
Yeah.
and say, hey, how are you doing? Because somebody else is feeling the same way. I mean, we have this incredibly faulty, inaccurate notion of how other people are feeling in this world. And there's all kinds of studies done on this. And people who are alone or lonely, they think, oh, everybody else is having so much fun. And if you go on Instagram or Facebook, then wow, it really does look like that, because people are posting their highlight reels for
Yeah.
the past 10 years. So it's like, oh no. So just first of all, don't go on those. Those are designed to make you feel miserable about yourself. So that's not how you raise your spirits. What you raise your spirits is you call, you reach out, you get on a Zoom with somebody, you check in with them, you see how you're doing. And when you lift somebody else up, you're being the coach. And the coach is always great, right? And you will
Yeah.
get an instant boost and you will feel good. And just that whole notion, that mindset of, I am the happy coach, I am the loneliness obliterator, it makes all the difference in the world.
I love it. Well, I think this is just a jam-packed, amazing download, to be honest.
Mhm.
I have so much that I personally am gonna listen to this over and over and over again just to harness these tools.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I hope my voice wasn't all croaky if you can listen to it over and over again.
No, it was fabulous. I'll listen to it meditatively at night
Yeah.
and go, yes, yes, yes.
And the key thing is, be willing to participate. A lot of this requires energy. So
Right.
make sure you're good at managing your own energy levels. And the best way to do that is to keep moving, exercise, get outside, be in nature. So exercising and being in nature are great. If you can do both at the same time,
Yeah.
amazing, right? Go hug a tree, go run in the forest, go run by the beach, or go on some hiking trail. And movement just changes all your physiology and the energy
Yeah.
of your body, obviously. And nature also does that. So the combining of the two is hugely powerful. And then you have the juice, right? You have the
Yeah.
juice to go out and reach out to other people. But when you're in nature, you're already amongst other people. I mean, everything is sentient in its own special way, right? A tree is definitely alive. The plants are alive. There's animals running around. So go out there. And a big part of forestalling loneliness is to realize that it's basically a fiction, right?
Yeah.
You are here. First of all, you're 40 trillion cells all working at the same time. So it happens to be this unitary seeming body, but really it's 40 trillion cells.
Yeah.
And you're also housing another, I don't know, 10 to 30 trillion other organisms, microbes, so viruses and and bacteria in your body. So you're already like this super organism, definitely not lonely, right? And at
Yeah.
the same time, we are all interconnected all the time to every other sentient being on the planet.
Oh,
Somebody on the other side of the planet coughed a couple of times, and now we're in quarantine in California and in Maryland. Amazing, right? So
yeah.
this interconnection thing is not some fiction. It's not some woo-woo thing. It's real. So
Yeah.
you can also use that to feel that. And in tantric practice, the idea of spanda is that the entire universe is vibrating with this vibratory frequency of life. It's pulsating.
Hmm.
And you are also, and at any moment, you can just close your eyes and imagine that you are pulsating like a wave, and all parts of your body are doing that. Your heart is pulsating, your breath is pulsating a different frequency, your brain has brain waves, everything is pulsating, everything is a wave, everything is a vibration. And then imagine that you're in the sea of vibration of the entire cosmos,
Ooh,
and you
wow.
are part of it. And just plug into that. Imagine your hands are plugging in and feel that electricity move through you, and know for a fact that you are one, you are a piece with the universe.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when you feel that, suddenly it's like, boop, your whole body, your head gets a jolt, and you're like, wee, party
Yeah.
time. And you can do that, the practice of this meditation that I learned from Daniel Audier, a great French tantric practitioner, is it takes like 10 15 seconds. You can do that 10 20 times a day. If you
Yeah.
do that every day, it changes your whole life.
Oh my God. I love it. Thank you for all these concrete tools because I think that is the most important part that people have tools when they're feeling lonely.
Oh yeah. Yeah, just talking about it's like, oh, loneliness, terrible thing. Okay, now what do I do about it? So here's what you do, step
Exactly.
by step. Build it, design it, practice it, and move.
I
Move
love it.
around.
I'm going to put your bio and links to all your work below the video so that people can access more of this information and access you and engineer their happiness. So
Fan
yeah, I wanted to thank you for just coming and talking about this and giving me and everyone who's listening some really amazing action items on how to deal with loneliness.
fantastic. Yes, loneliness be gone.
Yes, fuck loneliness. Thanks. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Fuck Loneliness. I'm your host, Sharon Pieczenik. And if you have any questions or comments, please email me at fcklonelyness@gmail.com. I look forward to having you with me at the next episode.